You're reporting. All right, youth activists have taken center stage at COP25 today. Greta Thunberg, remember her? Well, she's among the many activists there airing their views. They are holding a media briefing currently. Let's go there now live in Madrid.
The climate crisis is more than a discussion about a 1.5 degrees Celsius. It also looks like stolen and caged children at the US-Mexico border. It looks like missing and murdered indigenous women. People are dying. Indigenous land defenders are being murdered. The climate crisis is a spiritual crisis for our entire world. Our solutions must weave science with spirituality and traditional ecological knowledge with technology. Our movements must be bigger than recycling and braver than holding signs. It is up to each and every one of us to build movements that center the rights of indigenous peoples, healing and justice for the next 7 generations. It is time for us all to reconnect with Mother Earth. It is time to remember how to listen to her, to guide our climate solutions. Destroy white supremacy.
Thank you so much, Rose. This is so important to hear. I'm so happy to pass on the word to Hilda Flavia Nakabuye from Uganda. It's fantastic to have you here, Hilda. Please let us know what you have to say.
When I see the impacts of the climate crisis, especially in Africa and in particular Uganda, where I come from, many questions come to my mind. It a bit reminds me of the rampant racism and apartheid my ancestors endured. We are suffering severe effects of climate change, as if coming from the global south is a mortal sin, with no or very little action from developing countries. I've come to think that the climate crisis is another form of environmental racism and apartheid. We are deeply cut by the actions, words, and greed of those in power. The cuts are bringing scars to our own unborn children in the coming generations. Our hearts are bleeding with fire. I thought this was the best time for developed countries to exercise their moral duty and clean up their mess, but they do not care. How many more lives must we lose for the world to take action? Which type of storm or what flavor of floods must Africa taste for us to get climate justice? Every Friday, we continue to step out of our comfort zones by missing classes to stress the climate issue. How many more classes must we skip for the world to know we are suffering the most? Developed countries must be ashamed of themselves, given the amount of carbon they emit compared to what Africa is emitting. We almost emit nothing, but we are suffering the most. You have dreams, but we have dreams too. But these dreams have turned into nightmares. Nightmares of our own future, which is being negotiated right now by the world leaders without our say. Same way it is being destroyed by the same fossil fuel industries funding and present at COP, even as I speak now. If we don't clean up our emissions or solve the climate crisis as a global community, then those climate impacts are going to get worse and worse, and millions of lives are at stake. We need concrete action. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hilda. please think about her words. And finally, we are incredibly happy to have Angela Valenzuela from Chile with us, the country where we should be speaking now, actually. Thank you so much for coming to us to hear this panel today, Angela. Thank you so much for representing Chile here.
The cameras of the world don't often look at the global south. In the case of Chile, since COP25 was suspended in Santiago, most mainstream media forgot about us. Millions of people marching on the streets for a dignified life. It's not about 30 pesos. It's about 30 years of democratic governments that failed to protect us and to listen to our demands. Chile woke up. We said enough. We can't sustain a system that sacrifices people and drives the climate crisis for the benefit of a few. As a response to the unrest in Chile, the government declared a state of emergency. And curfews for the first week. But we are fearless. We continue to flood the streets, even if we are risking our lives. We are redefining our future and pushing the limits of what we think is possible. Chile woke up, and the world is waking up too. It's outrageous to arrive at COP in Madrid and see how the Chilean government cleans its image with empty words while committing human rights violations every day. This must stop now. How can we even think about ambitious action, ambitious climate action, when this government is spreading fear, shooting and blinding the eyes of people protesters? When this government is spreading fear, shooting and blinding the eyes of people protesters. In order to address the climate crisis, human rights must be protected. While countries congratulate each other for their weak commitments, the world is literally burning out. We only have few years to stay below 1.5 degrees of warming. We are clear on what needs to be done. The solutions are simple. We lack the political commitment. Over the last week of negotiations at COP, governments are discussing the wrong thing. Instead of talking about how to transition from fossil fuels, COP25 is focused on finding elaborate ways for rich, industrialized countries to be able to carry on polluting while pretending not to. As we know well in Chile, neoliberalism is a dead cult. As we know from past attempts, the market will not save us from the climate crisis. In fact, the opposite. The conversations that governments should be having are actually about the real current impacts of climate change that communities around the world are facing, like my friends have described now. People are already dying in the climate emergency, and these communities need support. But again, it seems that some lives matter more than others. The rich and powerful seem happy to sacrifice our communities in the pursuit of profit. So here at COP, back in Chile and around the world, people will continue to rise against governments that do not represent us. Our lives are not up for negotiation. Our planet is not for sale.
Thank you so much, Angela, for your words. I am not too sure if we have time for questions. Is there anyone from the UNFCCC who could give us a quick idea if we can extend time in this room? Could there anyone give us a signal? Okay, so I guess we just keep going until, we get a signal from someone. So what's happening now is we have 2 minutes. 2 minutes or 2 questions? 2 questions, excellent. So please think about them carefully. We have time for 2 questions. Please address your questions at the entire panel. We are in this together and we consider ourselves to fight the same fight. It's just that some of us are fighting the fight they never started and sacrifice them with their lives. After the 2 questions, we will have very short logistical announcements and a closing prayer from sustainers. So please, yes, 2 questions, please, from you here at the front, please. One.
My question is for Rose. If you can talk about... Hi, I'm Amy Goodman from Democracy Now! My question is for Rose and for Greta. You opened the conference with Indigenous youth. Greta, you've traveled the world and the United States, and you've gone to the Standing Rock Reservation, the Pine Ridge Reservation. I wanted to ask you why Indigenous resistance is so important to you. And Rose, if you can talk about what you're demanding of the US government now.
It is so incredibly important that we listen to Indigenous people because they are suffering and their rights are being violated across the world, and they are also among the ones who are being hit the most and quickest by the climate and environmental emergency. And also they have been living in balance with nature for hundreds of years. So we have, I think, we need to listen to them because they have valuable knowledge we need in this crucial time of crisis.
Thank you, Greta. Rose?
Thank you for your question. That is a question that we're never asked. We're never asked what we want and what we need. Because right now, for over 500 years, we have been on the front lines dying, risking our lives. We are still in prison today as political prisoners who are fighting for our lands, for our waters. And I think right now, Indigenous people worldwide, in general, are just asking to be listened to be stood with, and not to be in the background, to be in the front. Because we are on the front lines doing this work today, right now. We deserve to be listened to, and we also deserve to have our lands back.
Thank you so much, Rose. And we have time for one last question, maybe at the other panelists. So every question for, yes, everyone else here. I think you over there.
Yes, please.
We face the climate crisis. We are above 1 and 2 meters. Okay, let me start again. I have been asked. I'm Willie Losi, the Kingdom of Tonga. May I take this opportunity to speak on the behalf of the children of the ocean. That's our voices. This is real. The crisis is real. We are on the forefront of it. Whatever you're doing on this side of the world, we are 1 meter and 2 meters. We are the second vulnerable to any natural disasters. If the Arctic keeps melting, we are sinking. The 100,000 years of history of our ocean, we're going to go down. And let me clarify this with Professor Ebeli Hawafa, one of our great sociologists. The ocean does not divide us. It's uniting us. Our voice is very simple. We talk on humanity, on kindness and love. For the policy makers, we face the crisis, real crisis. It's not something that you can dreaming about, you cannot see that. I'll invite you to come to Tonga, experience the cyclone number 6 is going to hit Tonga this year or next year. See if you may be able to see the reality of what we have. But that's my kindness invitation for all of you. And I speak on behalf of my son named Aliki Wilson Lucy. He's 12 years old. All of us want the best for our children. We're all one on one of this. And I salute to you, Greta, for what you're doing. It's make the world take action on the right way. And may you have our blessings to keep doing what you're doing. Si o tutua o whātu. Mahaloa pito.
Thank you for sharing your message. Do we have time? No more. Okay, no more questions. But good news. There's the possibility to ask the panelists for interviews. We have press people. Could you wave your hands? There's Daniel. The press people from the Youth Climate Movement. There's Daniel. There is Leonie. There is Mashika Masaya, and then there is Eric, who will be outside to coordinate any interviews you might have with Carl and Keisha, Ashak, Rosehilde, and Angela. And for us, there is just 2 announcements to remain. One is there will be a Fridays for Future action happening at 12 o'clock outside Hall 4, a human chain. Please join us. There's also a press conference happening at the Social Summit at 12 o'clock today. And Greta and me are inviting for a second press conference tomorrow, for which the date and time will be confirmed. We also invite you to join us there. And yes, so I am again hugely honored and privileged to invite the Sustainers, Youth Indigenous Climate activists to join us. Please let us respect this time. We need to close the space together. Thank you so much for coming here. And thank you for everyone here in the audience for joining us today.
Well, that is Greta Thunberg. Of course, they're joined by 16 other children, of course, in and around her. Then, of course, as you can see, some of them are there indeed as they look to take COP25 by storm, indeed, looking for the call then for green peace, of course, and to try and minimize emissions as well, which has been a key issue, just about how sustainable South Africa and the rest of the world can be. Of course, within those 16 children, indeed, we do have a young South African as well, Aya Kamilitafa, who's 17 and from Cape Town as well, being part of that. Of course, Greta Thunberg is among the many activists there as well, as she continues to try and share that message and share exactly what the world should be looking at when it comes to young people and making the decisions for them as we move into the future.